All worlds begin with Demon Slayer. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 101, Tanjiro vs. Yaiba. On the other side, Tanjiro soon came to Yaiba, who was kicked by Bai Yu and crashed into the wall. At this time, Yaiba was embedded in the wall by the huge force. The walls around Yaiba were severely cracked and damaged under the impact of the huge force. Tanjiro just stopped in front of Yaiba, and Yaiba's body softened and fell to the ground, vomiting a lot of blood. Fortunately, Bai Yu's kick was just a simple physical attack. After vomiting blood, Yaiba's external and internal injuries were effectively recovered with the help of his strong recovery ability. Maybe it was because Bai Yu's absolute strength gave Tanjiro confidence that he no longer felt the same sense of oppression when facing Yaiba. Water breathing, one form, water surface slash. Just when Yaiba was vomiting blood, Tanjiro had already rushed towards him, wanting to take him away while he was recovering. But when Tanjiro drew his sword, Yaiba had already looked up at Tanjiro and then said angrily, "Don't look down on me. I'm not that easy to bully. The gap line is broken." Tanjiro was shocked. When Tanjiro slashed down with his sword, the gap line that locked Yaiba broke. The gap break means that Tanjiro's fatal blow has completely turned into a bubble. Then, Tanjiro staggered and fell to the ground. It turned out that under the control of Yaiba's telekinesis, Tanjiro slipped and fell to the ground. Tanjiro, who fell to the ground, quickly used Yashiro's visual sharing to see the arrow under his feet. After seeing the arrow under his feet, Tanjiro also understood why his previous blow that should have taken away Yaiba's fatal blow failed. Under my control, like a puppet, die according to my will. Yaiba immediately increased the control of telekinesis and directly controlled the sun blade in Tanjiro's hand. Tanjiro felt that the Nichiren sword in his hand seemed to be out of his control, and suddenly it slashed towards his neck. Fortunately, Tanjiro reacted quickly and held the Nichiren sword tightly, and then grabbed the blade with his other hand. Because telekinesis does not have a strong explosive power, the Nichiren sword did not cut off Tanjiro's palm, but only cut a hole on Tanjiro's palm. Tanjiro's blood dripped onto the ground along the blade in an instant. Tanjiro gritted his teeth, and then held the Nichiren sword tightly with his hand. As Tanjiro's arm muscles contracted violently, a huge force suddenly burst out, and the Nichiren sword was instantly stuck in the ground. The Nichiren sword stuck in the ground trembled violently under the control of Yaiba and Tanjiro's resistance. Tanjiro did not dare to let go, because he knew that, as long as he let go, the Nichiren sword would no longer be under his control, and the situation would be even more troublesome. Seeing that he couldn't send Tanjiro off in this way, Yaiba gave up controlling the Nichiren sword, and concentrated all his telekinesis on Tanjiro, sending him to the sky. Then Yaiba controlled Tanjiro and threw him towards a cherry tree. Tanjiro chopped the cherry tree into pieces with his sword, thus avoiding the tragic situation of hitting the tree. Seeing that hitting the tree failed, Yaiba immediately sent Tanjiro vertically into the sky, and the height continued to rise. In an instant, Tanjiro was nearly 70 to 80 meters above the ground. Chapter 102, Tanjiro's solo match. It's so high. Just as Tanjiro was sighing, Yaiba pressed his hands down, and Tanjiro, under the pressure of the telekinetic arrow, smashed into the ground as fast as a cannonball. "Dee how you can escape now?" Yaiba kept muttering, as if he was looking forward to Tanjiro's death. Indeed, smashing Tanjiro from a high altitude to the ground is undoubtedly fatal to Tanjiro as a human. Moreover, the ground is not like trees and buildings, which can be destroyed to reduce the impact damage. Facing the ground, no matter how powerful Tanjiro is, he cannot destroy the ground. Tanjiro, who was about to smash into the ground, naturally discovered this problem. Hitting the ground under such a huge gravitational acceleration, the result is naturally death. He must find a way to remove this huge momentum. Got it? Tanjiro suddenly had an idea and immediately concentrated his mind and adjusted his breathing throughout his body. Full concentration, water breathing, Form 8, Taketsubo. Tanjiro held the Nichiren sword with both hands and slashed it heavily from top to bottom. As his breathing produced a large amount of water rhythm, Tanjiro's Nichiren sword slashed the blade of the ground, generating a large amount of water flow. The water flow hit the ground violently, creating a dent in the ground and causing more spectacular splashes, while also buffering the huge impact force from top to bottom of Tanjiro. Tanjiro's feet touched the ground at once. Although Taketsubo buffered most of the impact force, the impact of the remaining force still made Tanjiro's feet feel temporarily numb. However, Tanjiro knew that this was not the time to slack off. Tanjiro ignored the numbness of his feet and twisted his waist in the next breath, while the Nichiren sword in his hand swept nearly 360 degrees in the direction of rotation. Full concentration, water breathing, 7th form, whirlpool twist. This move was the key move Tanjiro used to deal with the water ghost. At that time, he was in the water, so the destructive power of this move was significantly enhanced. Now he is on the ground. Although the power of 7th form, whirlpool twist cannot reach the level of that time, Tanjiro is not going to use this move to counterattack. Tanjiro is just using the rotational force of the whirlpool to offset the telekinetic arrows that Yaiba has blessed on him. As Tanjiro's body rotates and the blade swings, a water tornado suddenly appears around Tanjiro, which sucks the telekinetic arrows off Tanjiro's body and completely disintegrates them. Two consecutive moves immediately made Tanjiro's blood boil. It can be said that Tanjiro is completely in the strongest state at this time. Yaiba saw that his telekinesis was disintegrated and immediately wanted to regain control. However, Tanjiro did not intend to give Yaiba this opportunity. Tanjiro took a deep breath. Water breathing, Form 3, flowing dance. With the help of Form 3's agile body movements and Yashiro's shared vision, Tanjiro cleverly dodged those telekinetic arrows. But those telekinetic arrows still haunted Tanjiro. The moment Tanjiro got close to Yaiba, the gap line that determined victory or defeat quietly appeared in Tanjiro's sensory world. Tanjiro immediately seized this opportunity and swung his sword to give Yaiba the final fatal blow. However, those telekinetic arrows had already entangled the blade of the sun wheel, and Tanjiro's hand that swung the sword felt extremely heavy. Chapter 103 Gaining Telekinetic Control. In order to avoid the last fall, Tanjiro suddenly jumped into the air and then pulled the Nichiren sword that was entangled by the telekinetic arrow with both hands. Under the extremely heavy pull, the muscles of Tanjiro's arms contracted violently. Water breathing, 2nd form revised horizontal water wheel. Water breathing, 2nd form revised horizontal water wheel. Tanjiro's 2nd form revised, in fact, just changed the release direction of the move. The original water wheel was a vertical attack method. Now because of Tanjiro's body position, the attack mode of the water wheel has become horizontal. Therefore, Tanjiro's change of move is just a simple change of attack direction, and the move itself has not changed in essence. And Bai Yu's 1st form revised, water surface slash continuous slash. Although the attack method has changed, the essence of the move has also changed. Because Bai Yu's water surface slash continuous slash is not as simple as simply changing the direction, but the breathing itself is completely different from the original 1st form. So Bai Yu's change of moves is actually a real change of moves. Tanjiro's figure in the air was spinning like a dart, and he flew quickly towards Yaiba. The next moment, Yaiba's neck was swept by Tanjiro's Nichiren sword. Yaiba, who controlled the telekinesis, had no time to move to avoid Tanjiro's attack, and could only watch his neck being chopped off by Tanjiro's Nichiren sword. Tanjiro's whole body fell to the ground, because all the strength of his body was used to resist the pull of Yaiba's telekinesis, so Tanjiro didn't think about how to stand firm after this fatal blow. Because he didn't think about this problem, Tanjiro fell to the ground under the influence of gravity. Success. Seeing Yaiba's head being chopped off by the Nichiren sword, Tanjiro didn't care about his fall at all. You bastard. I want you to go to hell with me. Bai Yu knew that he could no longer recover, so he had the resentful idea of taking Tanjiro with him before he died. Bai Yu used his last life as the price to condense a very powerful telekinesis and gathered it on Tanjiro's body, hoping to destroy Tanjiro's body with the last blow that condensed all his vitality. Tanjiro, who fell to the ground, floated up under the drive of resentment, and then Tanjiro's head and limbs felt a huge pulling force, which was enough to tear Tanjiro into pieces. Suddenly, Tanjiro was also panicked. Just when Tanjiro was panicking, Bai Yu suddenly appeared in front of Yabayu's head, and then said to it coldly, "You have no chance to succeed." After that, Bai Yu turned on the ghost god and completely swallowed Yabayu into the purgatory of ghost gods. Yabayu screamed in the black air, and the scream spread throughout Tameo's mansion. Zhu Shoun, who was hanging on the tree, naturally heard the screams of Yabaha, and was terrified. What kind of horrible method could make the ghost scream like this? As Yabaha's screams disappeared, Tanjiro was no longer affected by telekinesis, and fell to the ground from the air again. Bai Yu gradually faded from the ghost, and at this time the system's broadcast prompt sounded. The demon devourer successfully copied the target's blood demon art, and the host gained the telekinetic control skill. Telekinetic control will increase with the level of the demon devourer. The higher the level of the demon devourer, the stronger the telekinetic control. Chapter 104, Life and Death of Shoun. After listening to the broadcast of the superdimensional crossing system, Bai Yu knew that he had obtained the ability to control telekinesis from Yabayu. With the stealth he had obtained from the water ghost before, Bai Yu now had 2 supernatural skills. As Yabayu's head was devoured by the ghost, Yabayu's body began to dissipate. Bai Yu clapped his hands, then tidied his clothes, and walked to Tanjiro, who was lying on the ground, and said to him, "Tanjiro, you really didn't disappoint me. You performed very well just now. You are already very powerful. You can already kill the 12 demon moons." After saying that, Bai Yu stretched out his hand to Tanjiro. Tanjiro looked at Bai Yu blankly. Facing Bai Yu's recognition, Tanjiro was stunned, and then nodded heavily to Bai Yu. Tanjiro's nod this time, in addition to recognizing Bai Yu's recognition of himself, was more of a recognition of himself. That's right, Tanjiro cut off Yabayu's head with his own ability. I'm not that weak. All these illusions are because Bai Yu is so powerful, so powerful. After Tanjiro nodded, he reached out and held Bai Yu's hand. Then, under Bai Yu's pull, Tanjiro stood up easily. Just after Tanjiro stood up, Nezuko ran over and hugged Tanjiro. Tanjiro looked at Nezuko, who was hugging him, and his heart was suddenly warm, so he reached out and touched Nezuko's head. After the matter was completely settled, Bai Yu, Tanjiro and Nezuko returned to Tameo. Tanjiro looked at the mansion that was destroyed by the 2 ghosts, Suzamoru and Yabaha, and he couldn't help feeling a little ashamed. The reason why Tanjiro felt ashamed was mainly because Suzamoru and Yabaha came to the door because of him, and perhaps Bai Yu might also be in their target. Bai Yu was not as ashamed as Tanjiro. After all, it was not Bai Yu who did it. Bai Yu was not ashamed of the consequences of other people's behavior. After all, the culprit who made this place like this, Suzamoru, has been punished by Bai Yu, and Yabaha has also been killed by Tanjiro. Well, Miss Tameo, I'm really sorry for making this place like this. Tanjiro apologized to Tameo very sincerely. Tanjiro, you don't have to blame yourself too much. After all, it's not you who did it. It's okay. I will ask Ishiro to repair it when the time comes. Tameo didn't mean to be angry about this. Miss Tameo is right. She destroyed the mansion. It's none of your business. Bai Yu also agreed at this time. As he said that, Bai Yu pointed to Suzamoru hanging under the cherry tree, and said to Tameo, "She destroyed the mansion, so I'll leave it to you to deal with it. How do you plan to deal with her?" Hearing this, Tameo also looked at Suzamoru and thought about it. Suzamoru's face was as hen, and there were still traces of tears in the corners of his eyes. Tanjiro also looked at Suzamoru, and seeing that Suzamoru was tortured so miserably, Tanjiro couldn't believe that the Suzamoru in front of him was a demon who killed people without blinking an eye, and ate people without leaving any bones. Tameo immediately sighed, shook her head, and said, "In order to avoid being targeted by Muzan, you'd better kill her. But before that, I'd like to draw some blood from her as a research sample." Just as Bai was about to take action, Tameo said again. Chapter 105, Soft-Hearted Tanjiro. Then Tameo took out a small box from her bosom, and in the small box was a needle for collecting blood. Then Tameo walked to Sasamaru with the needle and then inserted the needle into Sasamaru's arm to draw her blood. After Tameo walked to Sasamaru, she looked into Sasamaru's eyes and then sighed and said, "She is not the 12 Kizuki, and the other one who has died is probably not either." That adult said, "That I'm the 12 Kizuki." Sasamaru retorted weakly. When Tanjiro heard what Tameo said, he was very surprised that such a powerful ghost was not the 12 Kizuki. How strong would the real 12 Kizuki be? The 12 Kizuki have numbers engraved in their eyeballs, but your eyes don't, so you are not the 12 Kizuki. Musen deceived you. Tameo explained to Sasamaru again. No, that adult would not lie. Sasamaru did not accept Tameo's explanation. Tameo didn't mean to make the shonen believe what she said, so she said to Bai Yu-san, you can do it now. No, I don't want to die, please. Don't kill me, please. The shonen burst into tears and begged Bai Yu for mercy. When you killed people and ate their meat, why didn't you think about those people? Do they want to die? Bai Yu didn't mean to let the shonen go and said to the shonen coldly. Although Bai Yu didn't have the heart to torture the shonen anymore, it didn't mean that Bai Yu wouldn't kill the shonen. Because torturing a ghost and killing a ghost are two different things. To kill a ghost, Bai Yu would definitely do it cleanly and neatly and wouldn't bring much torture to the ghost at all. The final result would be that it would turn into dust and completely dissipate. Just when Bai Yu pulled out the two-color Nichiren sword, Tanjiro, who was infected by Suzaru, grabbed Bai Yu's hand and said to Bai Yu, "Senior Bai Yu, can you give her a chance to live?" Hearing this, Bai Yu was not frightened by Tanjiro's words, because this was in line with Tanjiro's kind character. After all, Yurakoda Kisakonji once told Bai Yu that Tanjiro was a child who was easy to sympathize with the ghost, and told Bai Yu that when necessary, he must make the most correct decision and not act like Tanjiro. This guy is carrying many lives on his shoulders. Are you sure you want to let her live and continue to harm the world? Bai Yu asked Tanjiro very seriously. If it was a ghost that had never eaten humans, Bai Yu could still listen to Tanjiro once, let Suzaru live, and then hand her over to Tameo for processing. At this time, Tanjiro looked at Tameo and then said, "Senior Bai Yu, if you let her live, you will have endless blood for Miss Tameo to study, and she can also become Miss Tameo's research subject, which will be of great help to Miss Tameo's research. Am I right?" Hearing this, Bai Yu realized that Tanjiro was planning this, but Sasayamaru's fighting power was so strong. Could Tameo control him? After all, it was impossible for him to stay by Tameo's side and watch Sasayamaru all the time. Therefore, although Tanjiro's idea was good, Bai Yu was most worried about Sasayamaru's betrayal after his injury healed. After all, he couldn't leave a time bomb by Tameo's side. However, just when Tanjiro was expecting Tameo to nod in agreement, Tameo shook her head. Chapter 106 Curse. No. Although she is not one of the 12 Kizuki, the concentration of Musen's blood in her body is not low, so she must have had many contacts with Musen and helped him do many things, so she became so strong. After receiving the reward of Musen's blood, leave her with me, and Musen will find her through the induction of blood. That's it. Tameo said to Tanjiro. Please. I really don't want to die. I will never go along with Musen again. I will never kill people and eat meat again. Please let me go. Lord Tameo, you can ask me to do anything. I will be obedient. In order to survive, Zashamaru's spirit has collapsed. It can be said that she has never been so afraid of death. Zashamaru thought that she would no longer be afraid of death by becoming a ghost, but she didn't expect that when death was teasing her in front of her, she was still afraid. You actually said the taboo of curse. Tameo was slightly surprised when she heard what Zashamaru said. Bai Yu and Tanjiro didn't understand, so Tanjiro asked, Miss Tameo, what is the taboo you are talking about? With Tameo's reminder, Sasamaru also realized it belatedly and actually said the name of Musen Kibutsuji. Musen Kibutsuji's name and everything about him are the taboos of the demon. As long as you say it out, you will be cursed. The cells in Musen Kibutsuji's blood will completely destroy the body of the cursed demon. Tameo explained to Tanjiro and Bai Yu. Hearing this, Bai Yu and Tanjiro couldn't help But think of the water ghost's fear at that time. It turned out that he was afraid of Muzan Kibutsuji's curse. So, in addition to the sunlight and the demon hunter's sun wheel sword that you know, Muzan Kibutsuji's cells are also something that can kill demon. Tameo continued. I don't want to die, forgive me. Muzan Kibutsuji. On the other side, Susamoru completely collapsed. She didn't expect that she would die from the curse backlash due to a slip of the tongue. This is really a great irony. However, no one cares about Susamoru's life or death now. Even Tanjiro is focusing on Nezuko at this time. Because after knowing that there is such a curse, Tanjiro can't help but worry that Nezuko will also be affected by the curse. Fortunately, Nezuko is wearing a gag and usually doesn't talk much, which makes Tanjiro feel a lot more at ease. But what Tanjiro didn't expect was that ghosts can actually be killed by things other than sunlight and the sunblade. And the thing that kills them actually comes from their king. When Tameo said this, she looked at Bai Yu and then showed the bloodstain on her fair arm that could not be restored in the short term, and continued, maybe the special power in Bai Yu-san can also kill ghosts. Bai Yu knew that Tameo was talking about his own ghost power, so he was not too surprised. After all, Bai Yu was not unaware that he had this ability. Tanjiro was more or less envious of Bai Yu's ability. After all, with this ability, he could become the nemesis of demons. At this time, Bai Yu's sight fell on the already somewhat crazy Susamoru. Bai Yu had no intention of taking action. After all, Susamoru triggered the curse of Muzan Kibutsuji, and he would die anyway. Bai Yu was also very curious about what the scene would be like when the curse took effect. Chapter 107 Bai Yu's reminder. Time passed by minute. After about a minute, there was still no sign of the curse of Muzan Kibutsuji coming true. ZHU Shamaru was still talking about Muzan Kibutsuji crazily. Bai Yu couldn't help but look at Tameo again, and then asked, Miss Tameo, does the curse take a long time to come true? Tameo looked a little confused. She had never encountered such an abnormal situation. So, Tameo shook her head and said, normally, her body should have been completely destroyed by Muzan Kibutsuji's cells. Perhaps it is because the special power in your body remains in her body. This power not only inhibits the recovery of her wounds, but also may inhibit the function of Muzan Kibutsuji's blood. Because I don't know how long this power can last in her body, so maybe when the power disappears, Muzan Kibutsuji's curse may take effect, and then her end will still be death. Tameo spoke out her analysis, which was also a deduction made by Tameo after she was whipped by Bai Yu and experienced the power herself. However, the extent to which Tameo was beaten was different from that of Susamoru. If every whip had that kind of power invading the body, then Susamoru, who had been whipped no less than 50 times, would definitely have accumulated much more power in his body than Tameo. Tameo was very curious about whether the remnant of this power would cause the ghost's body to mutate and completely get rid of Muzan Kibutsuji's control. The crazy Susamoru also heard Tameo's words, and she was completely desperate and raised the hope of life again. Although Tameo said that the curse might only be suppressed by Bai Yu's ghost power and not completely get rid of it, as long as there is a chance to live, she can get rid of Muzan Kibutsuji's curse and control like Tameo. This is Susamoru's plan at this time. Now she has decided to take this opportunity to completely get rid of Muzan Kibutsuji's control. In that case, let me send her off in person. Seeing that Susamoru did not die from the curse, Bai was ready to send Susamoru off in person again. No. Please, give me a chance. As long as you don't kill me, I'm willing to be your slave. Please give me a chance to live. ZHU Shoun saw that Bai Yu was going to kill him and immediately begged Bai Yu for mercy. Bai Yu did not accept ZHU Shoun's plea for mercy and immediately pulled out the two-color sun wheel sword. Only the sound of the sword being unsheathed was heard, but Tameo stopped Bai Yu from taking any further action at this time and said to Bai Yu-san, her current situation may be helpful to my research. Can you hand her over to me? Feeling Tameo's smooth palm pressing on his hand, Bai Yu couldn't help but sigh in his heart that Tameo's palm felt good and the feel was really great. Yoshiro saw Tameo's hand on Bai Yu's hand, and his heart was already full of jealousy. However, Facing Bai Yu, Yoshiro didn't dare to be presumptuous in front of Bai Yu, so he could only be jealous in his heart. Aren't you afraid that she will regret it after she recovers from her injuries? If she secretly passes the message to Muzan Kibutsuji, it will be a disaster for you. Bai Yu still reminded Tameo with concern. Bai Yu naturally didn't trust Susanoo much. The reason why Bai Yu cared about Tameo so much was naturally because of the mission issued by the superdimensional crossing system. Chapter 108. I hope you are not just saying it. Since the superdimension crossing system has issued a task to help Tameo and win her heart, it is actually telling Bai Yu in this way that Tameo is one of his own and one of his harem. Therefore, facing someone who may become his woman in the future, Bai Yu naturally has to care about her. When Sasamaru heard Bai Yu's doubtful words, in order to get a chance to survive and gain Bai Yu's trust, Sasamaru strongly denied it and said, "No, I will never have any contact with Muzan Kibutsuji again. Please believe me. From now on, I will listen to Lord Tameo obediently, please." Tameo didn't say anything more because the final decision was in Bai Yu's hands, and Tameo naturally understood what Bai Yu said. Although Sasamaru is pitiful now, she is still a ghost who works for Muzan Kibutsuji. At this time, Tanjiro sniffed the breath of Sasamaru carefully with his nose. After feeling that Sasamaru was extremely pious and did not have any smell of lies, Tanjiro pleaded for Sasamaru. "Senior Bai Yu, her breath has become much clearer now. She should not be lying. Just hand her over to Miss Tameo. Maybe she is just a poor person used by Muzan Kibutsuji." At this time, Bai Yu looked at Tameo again and then asked, "Miss Tameo, are you sure you can make this guy change his ways like you?" Bai Yu knew that Tameo must have worked for Muzan Kibutsuji before, and Sasamaru's situation should be similar to hers at that time. The only difference between Tameo and Sasamaru may be that Tameo took the initiative to break away from Muzan Kibutsuji, and then through her own means, after a long period of accumulation, she diluted Muzan Kibutsuji's blood a little bit, thus successfully getting rid of Muzan Kibutsuji's control. And Sasamaru's surrender now has passive factors. So whether she really wants to change her ways, Bai Yu can't say for sure. Although I'm not sure if she has any abnormalities, I will take the most correct way to deal with it. Naturally, Tameo didn't dare to guarantee for Sasamaru. The reason why Tameo dared to keep Sasamaru alive was actually to study whether Sasamaru's body would undergo a qualitative change under the influence of Bai Yu's power of ghosts and gods. This may have an open-minded discovery for the research on turning ghosts into humans. The most important thing is that Sasamaru has now escaped the control of Muzan Kibutsuji under the influence of the power of ghosts and gods. So Tameo is not afraid that Muzan Kibutsuji will come to her through Sasamaru. So even if Sasamaru wants to turn against her after her injuries recover, Tameo can deal with it. Bai Yu knew what Tameo meant, and seeing that Tameo had already made plans, Bai Yu also agreed to Tameo and Tanjiro's request, and chose to give Sasamaru a way to live. "I hope you can remember what I said to me today, otherwise the next time we meet will be your death. Don't think that only Muzan Kibutsuji can find you through blood. I can also find you by invading the remaining power in your body. Don't think you can hide from me forever." Bai Yu did not forget to warn ZHU Shorin at the end. ZHU Shorin nodded to Bai Yu after hearing this, and then assured Bai Yu, "Don't worry, sir. I will never have two hearts. I promise to be loyal to you. I hope you are not just talking." Bai Yu was naturally disdainful of ZHU Shorin's loyalty and did not take it to heart. After all, everyone can say beautiful words, but as for whether they can do it, it depends on the person. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 109. Then I'll leave her to you. Bai Yu finished speaking and cut off the hem rope hanging Zashorin with his sword. Zashorin fell heavily to the ground. Bai Yu did not intend to help Zashorin up. Instead, he turned to Tameo and said, "Then she will be handed over to you." Hearing this, Tameo nodded and then turned to Yoshiro and ordered Yoshiro, Take her to another usable room for the time being. I will go to treat her wound later. Yoshiro was a little reluctant. He was very unhappy about having such an extra guy in his life. I don't want to touch that ugly freak. Yoshiro refused very arrogantly. Yoshiro, who even Nezuko called her an ugly girl, it is very normal for Yoshiro to dislike Zashoin. Although Zashoin is not as deformed as a hand ghost, nor does she have horns on her head like the water ghost. But Zashoin's appearance is indeed a little worse than Nezuko and Tameo. Of course, Suzamoru can't be considered ugly, it can only be said that he is ordinary and mediocre. Suzamoru didn't have the energy to argue with Yoshiro at this time. If it were any other time, Suzamoru would have fought with Yoshiro. Tanjiro knew that Yoshiro was a tsundere guy, so he took the initiative to help Suzamoru up. Are you okay? Tanjiro asked Suzamoru with concern. If Tanjiro felt pity for Suzamoru, it can only be said that Bai Yu's ruthless whipping brought out the pitiful side of Suzamoru's humanity. So Suzamoru looked so scarred at this time that Tanjiro really couldn't treat her as a ghost. Suzamoru was stunned by Tanjiro's concern. After becoming a ghost, Suzamoru had never felt any care. So under Tanjiro's care, Suzamoru felt that this care was not so real, but was a bit false. But after seeing Tanjiro's healing look, Suzamoru felt a little warmth in his heart. So, Sasayama shook his head at Tanjiro subconsciously. Yoshiro, if you keep being so arrogant, I will punish you. Hurry up and lead the way for Tanjiro. I will treat her wound later. Tameo said to Yoshiro angrily at this time. Hearing this, Yoshiro immediately put away his arrogance just now, and then promised Tameo, Lord Tameo, I promise I won't do it next time. After that, Yoshiro led Tanjiro to an undamaged room. Tanjiro put Sasayama down on the bed. Because Sasayama's entire back, buttocks, and even thighs were injured, Sasayama could only lie on the bed, and could not make any large movements. At this time, Tameo wrapped herself in a white coat, put on a mask and gloves, and walked into the room. Bai Yu did not come in with Tameo, only Nezuko came in with Tameo. Seeing this, Tanjiro asked Tameo, Ms. Tameo, where is Bai Yu senpai? Bai Yu-san is outside the mansion. Tameo replied. After that, Tameo asked Yoshiro to prepare medicines and medical instruments for treating external injuries. Yoshiro quickly prepared the things for Tameo, and then Tameo sat down beside Suzamoru's bed and began to treat the wound on his back. Tameo first cleaned the blood from Suzamoru's wound. After cleaning the blood, Tameo found that the wound on Suzamoru's back actually outlined a humanoid monster pattern. Chapter 110 The Prototype of Ghosts and Gods. Seeing this, Tameo stopped moving, and then murmured to herself in her heart. Could these scars be deliberately made by Bai Yu? What is the pattern of this humanoid monster? Just when Tameo wanted to ask Bai Yu, she found that Bai Yu was not in the room at this time. So Tameo said to Tanjiro, Tanjiro, please go and call Bai Yu-san over. Hearing this, Tanjiro came outside the mansion with doubts. At this time, Bai Yu was standing under a cherry tree, looking up at the cherry blossoms above, and the moon above his head. Tanjiro walked over and said, Senior Bai Yu, Miss Tameo asked you to come over. Hearing this, Bai Yu looked at Tanjiro in some surprise, and at the same time, a fallen cherry blossom petal fell on the palm of the hand that had just been stretched out. Tameo still has something to ask her? What could it be? With doubts, Bai Yu came to the room where Zashomaru's wound was treated under Tanjiro's guidance. Bai Yu-san, come and look at her back. When Tameo saw Bai Yu coming, he motioned Bai Yu to come and look at ZHU Shoin's back. Hearing this, Bai Yu was even more puzzled. What was so good about ZHU Shoin's back? Even if ZHU Shoin's skin was good, it had been beaten to pieces by him. What was there to see? However, Bai Yu did not ask much, but walked in front of ZHU Shoin and looked at her back. Did you make this scar pattern on purpose? What do you think it looks like? Tameo asked the question without any concealment. After cleaning the blood that had spilled from the wound, Bai Yu also discovered that ZHU Shoin's scar was actually a pattern of a humanoid monster. Looking at the scar, Bai Yu felt very familiar. After careful identification, Bai Yu found that it was the prototype of a ghost. But how could this scar form the prototype of a ghost? My whipping skills are not so good, right? Can I make such a pattern by just whipping someone a few times? Seeing Bai Yu lost in thought, Tomio asked again, you don't know either? That's not the case. I just don't know why it appeared on her body. Bai Yu replied, and then explained to Tomio briefly, the scar of this humanoid monster is actually the ghost, the owner of the power that possessed me. What is the ghost? Tomio was even more puzzled. It is a kind of advanced life form with powerful power. You can understand it as the nemesis of the ghost. I have a symbiotic relationship with the ghost. To use its power, I must nourish the ghost in my body with the blood of the ghost. Only by constantly nourishing with the blood of the ghost, the power of the ghost will become stronger. Bai Yu explained. Tanjiro listened very seriously, because this was the first time that Bai Yu explained his own situation in such detail. At this time, Tanjiro knew that Bai Yu's body had been parasitized by a powerful existence called ghost. I see. This was the first time Tomio had heard of the ghost, and she sighed in her heart. It is true that there is always a way out. Perhaps the wound on her back was left by the ghost. Bai Yu had a conclusion in his mind at this time. Then what effect will this mark have on her in the future? Tomio couldn't help but ask again. Chapter 111 I'm very obedient. Bai Yu shook his head. Bai Yu didn't know. The broadcast of the superdimensional crossing system did not sound, and the system did not give an answer. Seeing that Bai Yu didn't know, Tomio didn't continue to ask. However, Tomio planned to copy the information about ghosts and the scar on Zashimaru's back into her notebook. After hearing that the scar on her back was a mark of a ghost, Zashimaru was extremely uneasy. She was still happy to get rid of Muzan Kibutsuji's control. Unexpectedly, she fell into the pit dug by Bai Yu. I will follow up and record her subsequent situation in detail. Tomio said to Bai Yu. Bai Yu didn't care too much about this, so he nodded lightly. After that, Tomio began to apply some external medicine to Zashimaru. When applying the medicine, Zashimaru didn't say a word. After all, Zashimaru was a ghost, and the pain of applying the medicine didn't affect her at all. The only thing she could feel was the pain caused by the power of ghosts and gods eroding her body. However, Susumaru could still bear the pain. And Tomio also knew that these trauma medicines actually did not play a big role in Susumaru's recovery. After all, even the recovery power of the ghost could not repair the wound, let alone these trauma medicines for ordinary people. But what needs to be treated must be treated. At least the blood in the wound can be coagulated and scabbed. At this time, Bai Yu asked Susumaru, what's your name? Replying to Lord Bai Yu, my name is Susumaru. Susumaru answered without hesitation. Susumaru, I ask you, in the city of Asakusa, Tokyo Prefecture, besides you and the ghost, who uses telekinesis, are there any other ghosts here? After knowing Susumaru's name, Bai Yu continued to ask. The reason why he asked Susumaru this was related to the mission. This time, Bai Yu and Tanjiro came to Asakusa, Tokyo Prefecture, to eradicate the ghosts here. However, Bai Yu also knew how many ghosts were hidden in such a huge Asakusa, Tokyo Prefecture, so taking this opportunity to ask Susumaru was the best choice. After all, Zashimaru can be dispatched directly by Muzan Kibutsuji, so this place is obviously her territory. Hearing this, Zashimaru's heart tightened, and then she replied with some fear, Sir, there are no more. There are only 2 ghosts here in Asakusa, Tokyo Prefecture, me and Yaiba. Really? Asakusa, Tokyo Prefecture is so big, and Muzan Kibutsuji only arranged 2 ghosts here. Bai Yu was a little unconvinced. It's true, Lord Bai Yu. Muzan Kibutsuji didn't want to attract the attention of the Z government, so he didn't place too many ghosts in Asakusa, Tokyo Prefecture. After all, if there are too many ghosts, more people will be eaten, so it's easy to be noticed by the Z government. Zashimaru explained to Bai Yu very nervously. She was afraid that Bai Yu would kill her directly if she didn't believe it. Looking at the cold sweat on Zashimaru's frightened and vigilant face, Bai Yu couldn't help but laugh out loud. Is she more terrifying than Muzan Kibutsuji? Don't be nervous. As long as you listen to me and don't lie to me, I won't kill anyone casually. Bai Yu comforted the extremely nervous ZHU Shoun. I'm very obedient. I will never lie to you. ZHU sure and emphasized. Bai Yu nodded and didn't ask any more questions. Chapter 112. Parting. At this time, Tameo said to Bai Yu, "What the Shamaru said is right. Muzan Kibutsuji is actually a coward. In order not to attract the attention of the Z government, he did not infect too many people to become demons. Only the 12 Kazuki can be reused by him. As for the other demons, they are just used to contain the Demon Slayer core. No wonder these people outside don't know the existence of demons. It turns out that Muzan Kibutsuji is too cowardly." Tanjiro sighed at this time. However, Tanjiro was also thankful that Muzan Kibutsuji was a coward, otherwise this world would probably become a hell on earth. Coward. Bai Yu sneered in his heart and couldn't help but laugh at Muzan Kibutsuji. In that case, Tanjiro, our one-day trip to Asakusa, Tokyo Prefecture is over. Let's leave at dawn. Bai Yu said to Tanjiro at this time. So soon? Won't you stay a little longer, Senior Bai Yu? Tanjiro was a little surprised. Tanjiro thought he would stay in Asakusa, Tokyo for a while. After all, this place is so big, it must be inconvenient to find ghosts. Unexpectedly, on the first night, 2 ghosts came to the door. One was killed by himself, and the other was tamed by Bai Yu. The mission was completed so easily. Seeing that Tanjiro was reluctant to leave, Bai Yu joked, "If you don't leave, do you want to stay and spend the rest of your life with Miss Tameo? Aren't you afraid that Yoshiro will strangle you to death?" As Bai Yu said this, Yoshiro glanced at Tanjiro with hostility and warning eyes. Tanjiro shuddered suddenly, then his back straightened, and he said, "How is it possible?" At this time, Tameo took over Tanjiro's words and joked to Tanjiro, "What? Do you dislike me, an old woman over 200 years old?" Tanjiro immediately waved his hands at Tameo and then explained nervously, "Ms. Tameo is so young and beautiful, how can she be an old woman? I can't wait to see you every day. How could I dislike you?" Hearing Tanjiro's praise of Tameo, Yoshiro's eyes instantly filled with murderous intent, and the jealousy in his heart was completely overturned. Tanjiro saw Yoshiro with murderous intent out of the corner of his eye, and immediately swallowed his saliva, then changed the subject and said, "It's just that Senior Bai Yu also said that we should leave. After all, we are ghost hunters, and the people in other places need us to rescue. I just want to play in Asakusa, Tokyo for a few more days. Our allowance is not much. The consumption in Asakusa, Tokyo is too high. We can't afford it, so let's leave early." Bai Yu poured cold water on Tanjiro at this time, extinguishing his idea of playing for a few more days. Tanjiro's face suddenly turned pale, and then he said to Bai Yu very disappointedly, "I know, Senior Bai Yu." The Shamaru looked at Bai Yu and others who were joking with each other, as if they were a happy family. The Shamaru was inexplicably touched in his heart. Is this the feeling of home? So warm, so comfortable soon. The Shamaru slowly fell asleep with such a wonderful feeling. At this time, Tameo said to Shirahara and Tanjiro, "We are also planning to leave here. There has been a battle here, and Muzan Kibutsuji may come at any time. We must find a safe place to hide as soon as possible." Tanjiro, "Do you want to leave Nezuko to us to take care of her?" Chapter 113. Nezuko is a beauty. Hearing this, Tanjiro was stunned. Obviously he didn't expect Tameo to make such a request. Although it can't guarantee absolute safety, it is at least much safer than taking her to fight with you. Tameo continued. Hearing this, Tanjiro was also shaken in his heart, thinking that Nezuko's peaceful life with Tameo might be more suitable for Nezuko as a girl. Nezuko seemed to understand Tameo's words, and she suddenly held Tanjiro's hand tightly, as if using this behavior to tell Tanjiro that compared with a peaceful and quiet life, she would rather follow you. Tanjiro couldn't help but look at Nezuko and saw what she meant from Nezuko's eyes, and then his heart suddenly warmed up. Just when Tanjiro was about to reject Tameo's proposal, Bai Yu took the lead in rejecting Tameo. "Ms. Tameo, I can't agree to your proposal. Nezuko should stay with me so that I can feel more at ease." Bai Yu refused. The reason for Bai Yu's refusal is actually very simple. After all, Nezuko's life and death are linked to Bai Yu. Therefore, Bai Yu is still willing to hold his life in his own hands instead of giving it to others. Of course, Bai Yu will not tell Tameo and Tanjiro about this, because this is a secret that no one can tell. Tanjiro was also stunned when he heard Bai Yu's words. Tanjiro did not expect Bai Yu to refuse Nezuko to separate from him. Did Bai Yu really like Nezuko? Or did he feel bad after seeing Nezuko's body and wanted to be responsible for Nezuko? In his wild thoughts, Tanjiro immediately threw these messy ideas aside. Since Bai Yu did not want to separate from Nezuko, he should not let Nezuko separate. I'm really sorry, Miss Tameo. First of all, thank you for your concern, but Nezuko is my only relative, and I can never leave Nezuko alone again. Nezuko must be with me, and Bai Yu Sr. Tanjiro also expressed his attitude to Tameo. Looking at the three people who could not give up each other, Tameo knew that this was a joint decision of the three, so she stopped forcing it. I see. Then I wish you good luck. Tameo said goodbye for the last time. Yoshiro felt relieved when he saw that Nezuko had no intention of staying because he didn't want too many people to follow Tameo. Otherwise, he would not have the opportunity to be alone with Tameo. Goodbye then. We have to eliminate the traitors here before we leave. You can leave now. Yoshiro wanted to strike while the iron was hot and wanted to send Bai Yu, Tanjiro and Nezuko away quickly. Goodbye, Yoshiro, Miss Tameo. Tanjiro was also very polite and said goodbye to Tameo and Yoshiro in a simple way. Bai Yu didn't say much goodbye to Tameo, but before leaving, he looked at Tameo's beautiful face again and turned to leave. Nezuko hurriedly followed, and Tanjiro finally waved to Tameo and Yoshiro, and followed. Just as Tanjiro stepped onto the stairs, Yoshiro suddenly called out to him, Tanjiro. Tanjiro stopped, turned his head back, and looked at Yoshiro with some confusion, waiting for what he was going to say next. Nezuko is a beauty, Yoshiro said to Tanjiro without turning his head. Hearing this, Tanjiro smiled affirmatively and then disappeared from Tameo's sight with a cheerful laugh. Chapter 114 Heading to Nanandang. At this time, Bai Yu and Nezuko were waiting for Tanjiro in a dark corner. A ray of sunlight in the morning shone through the dilapidated wall. The sunlight coming through the dilapidated building made the messy scene around seem a little desolate. Tanjiro also walked out of the exit of the basement at this time. Bai Yu saw Tanjiro coming out, so he touched Nezuko's head and said to Tanjiro, Tanjiro, it's morning. Let Nezuko hide in the mist spruce wooden box. Hearing this, Tanjiro took off the mist spruce wooden box on his back and put it on the ground. Immediately, Nezuko opened the mist spruce wooden box by herself and got in. After getting into the wooden box, Nezuko also took the initiative to close the door of the wooden box. Then Tanjiro inserted the latch of the mist spruce wooden box to ensure that the door of the wooden box would not open due to gravity or inertia. At this moment, the crow flew into the dilapidated mansion and then said to Bai Yu and Tanjiro, the next mission location is Nanandang. Nanandang. According to the information, there may be ghost activities in the Nanandang area. Please ask the ghost hunter Bai Yu and Kamado Tanjiro to go as soon as possible. After that, the crow handed the allowance for the Tokyo Prefecture Asakusa mission to Bai Yu. When Tanjiro heard that the crow was coming to assign another mission, he immediately lost his spirit. Originally, Tanjiro was planning to persuade Bai Yu to play in Tokyo Prefecture Asakusa for a while, but now it is obviously no chance. After handing the allowance to Bai Yu said to Tanjiro, let's go. Tanjiro. Yes, Bai Yu Sr. Tanjiro replied to Bai Yu weakly. After that, Bai Yu and Tanjiro bought some dry food for the journey at the morning market in Tokyo Prefecture Asakusa. After a simple preparation, Bai Yu and Tanjiro officially set off for Nanandang. Nanandang is a village area far away from the urban area, and it is quite a long distance from Asakusa, Tokyo Prefecture. In a dark room in a luxurious mansion, Muse and Kibutsuji looked at the sunlight coming through the window with an extremely angry expression. Too useless trash, they can't even handle two little ghosts. After saying that, Muse and Kibutsuji immediately stretched out his hand to the ray of sunlight. After the sunlight shone on Muse and Kibutsuji's hand, Muse and Kibutsuji's palm showed signs of burning into ashes and dissipating. At the same time, Muse and Kibutsuji uttered a painful groan, and then retracted his hand. After being exposed to the sunlight, Muzan Kibutsuji became even more annoyed. This time his anger did not come from Zashoin and Yaiba, but from his own defects. This is also the defect that Muzan Kibutsuji wants to overcome most in his life. If Muzan Kibutsuji is no longer afraid of the sun, he will replace the current Z mansion and become the master of the world. Mirai, give the order to let the lower six solve this matter. Bring back to me the head of the demon hunter with the Hanafuda on his ear. Muzan Kibutsuji, through the connection of his own blood, gave the upper six with rich blood the order to kill Shirahara and Tanjiro. The way Muzan Kibutsuji contacted the 12 Kazuki was similar to using the local area network to publish information. Because the 12 Kazuki all have a lot of Muzan Kibutsuji's blood, this blood must be connected to the original Muzan Kibutsuji, and this connection is equivalent to the local area network. So as long as he is within the range of the local area network, Muzan Kibutsuji can sense the existence of other demons. If the distance is very close, Muzan Kibutsuji can also directly obtain the vision of other demons. This is also the reason why Muzan Kibutsuji can sense that the hunting of Zashimaru and Yaiba have failed. Chapter 115, Meeting My Wife Zenitsu. After 2 days of travel, Bai Yu and Tanjiro arrived in the Nanandong area. Away from the city, Bai Yu and Tanjiro returned to the familiar mountains again. This made Tanjiro feel very comfortable. After all, Tanjiro grew up in the mountains since he was a child. The two quickly went down the mountainside to the fields of nearby villages. Following the road in the field, Bai Yu prepared to go to the nearby village to inquire about the situation. As a result, Bai Yu and Tanjiro just arrived at the entrance of the village and saw a familiar figure kneeling on the roadside at the entrance of the village, pleading with the girl, and then begged bitterly, "Please, please, marry me. I don't know when I will die, so I want to marry a wife first. Please, please you must marry me. Senior Bai Yu, I seem to have seen my wife Zenitsu." Tanjiro couldn't believe that he could meet my wife Zenitsu in the Nanandong area. It's not like that. That person is Zenitsu. Let's go and take a look. The girl seems to be scared by him. Bai Yu didn't expect to meet Zenitsu Agatsuma here, so he planned to go and see what happened to Zenitsu Agatsuma and why he scared the girl like that. Tanjiro naturally had no objection. After all, Zenitsu Agatsuma was a partner. So, Bai Yu and Tanjiro came to Zenitsu Agatsuma. "Zenitsu, what are you going to do by grabbing that girl? Look how scared the girl is." Bai Yu came in front of Zenitsu Agatsuma and put one hand on his shoulder. Hearing this, Zenitsu Agatsuma turned his head and looked at Bai Yu. After seeing Bai Yu, Zenitsu Agatsuma was suddenly frightened, and the whole person stood up straight in an instant, and then stuttered and exclaimed, "Senior Bai Yu, why are you here too? What a coincidence." "It's quite a coincidence." Bai Yu smiled faintly. Then, Bai Yu looked at Agatsuma Zenitsu's kneeling posture, and then asked the girl, "Girl, is this yellow-haired man proposing to you?" The girl looked at Bai Yu, and was immediately fascinated by Bai Yu's delicate appearance and unique temperament. So handsome. The girl looked at Bai Yu with fanaticism in her eyes, and then slapped Agatsuma Zenitsu on the face. Then the girl came to Bai Yu shyly, took Bai Yu's hand, and said to Bai Yu, "Little brother, will you marry me?" Agatsuma Zenitsu saw this scene and was suddenly shocked and wanted to die. Wow, I won't live anymore. Agatsuma Zenitsu immediately wanted to pull out the sunblade at his waist and commit suicide. Upon seeing this, Tanjiro immediately stopped Agatsuma Zenitsu's behavior. "Zenitsu, stop messing around. Shiraya senpai stole my woman, and I can't beat him. I won't live anymore. Wow, no. I must tell this to Shiraya senpai's fiancé and let her teach him a lesson." Agatsuma Zenitsu immediately hugged Bai Yu and cried. Faced with such a proactive girl, Bai Yu was a little surprised. She was not very excited, but rejected the girl very calmly. "I'm sorry, I already have a fiancé." Hearing what Bai Yu said, the girl's face was as hen, and she fell to the bottom of the valley. At this time, Bai Yu knocked Agatsuma Zenitsu on the forehead with a fried chestnut, and then said, "Zenitsu, the girl doesn't even know her, and she hasn't agreed to marry you, so why are you asking me to steal your woman?" If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. we cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 116. You have to find me a wife. I don't care, she is going to marry me. If you weren't so handsome, Senior Bai Yu, she would definitely like me. She wouldn't be snatched away by you. Nagatsuma's Zenitsu began to make trouble unreasonably. Hearing this, Bai Yu also smiled bitterly helplessly. Nagatsuma's Zenitsu is really self-indulgent. However, Agatsuma Zenitsu still has a very correct understanding of appearance, and he also knows that Bai Yu is handsome. At this time, the girl slapped Agatsuma Zenitsu's face again, and this slap made Agatsuma Zenitsu spin in circles. I don't like you. If I hadn't seen you lying on the side of the road, looking like you were going to die, I wouldn't talk to you. The girl said to Agatsuma Zenitsu very seriously. Hearing this, Agatsuma Zenitsu asked in surprise, hey, aren't you talking to me because you like me and worry about me? No, absolutely not. I neither like you nor worry about you. After the girl made a very serious and loud statement to Agatsuma Zenitsu, she left angrily. Her anger mainly came from Agatsuma Zenitsu, and part of it was anger from being rejected by Bai Yu. Of course, she was not angry at Bai Yu as a person, but she was angry that she could not be with Bai Yu. Wait a minute. Don't you want to reconsider it? I'm a very good person. I love my wife very much. Hey. Agatsuma Zenitsu still shouted in the direction where the girl left. Bai Yu couldn't help but find it funny to see Agatsuma Zenitsu trying so hard to sell himself to the girl, as if he was selling something. And this funny thing was not a mockery, but just a smile at Agatsuma Zenitsu's cute behavior. However, the girl did not pay attention to Agatsuma Zenitsu anymore, but gradually walked away. The person has gone far away. Find another one. Bai Yu choked to Agatsuma Zenitsu, who still had a glimmer of fantasy. Do you think it's so easy to find a virgin girl now? Senior Bai Yu, I don't care. It's because of you that the girl left. Otherwise, if I begged her a little longer, she would definitely agree. Senior Bai Yu, you have to find me a wife. I remember you promised me last time that, as long as I don't join the hidden department, you would introduce Tanjiro's sister to me. Hurry up, when will you introduce me to her? Agatsuma Zenitsu now pestered Bai Yu, and then kept asking Bai Yu to introduce Nezuko to him. Bai Yu shook his head helplessly, and then said, it's not the time yet. I will let you meet in the evening. Meet in the evening? Why meet in the evening? Senior Bai Yu, do you want us to make it a done deal, as soon as possible? The more Agatsuma Zenitsu thought about it, the more evil his smile became. Tanjiro couldn't stand it anymore, and directly imitated Bai Yu and hit Agatsuma Zenitsu on the forehead with a fried chestnut. Tanjiro, what are you doing? Agatsuma Zenitsu immediately covered his forehead and asked Tanjiro. Your thoughts are too vulgar. I will not entrust my sister to you. I will entrust my sister to Shiraha Senior. Tanjiro said to Agatsuma Zenitsu. Agatsuma Zenitsu immediately showed a trace of despair, and then begged Tanjiro. Tanjiro. No. Shiraha Senior already has Kiko. It's not appropriate to entrust your sister to him. Entrust your sister to me. I will definitely make your sister happy. Chapter 117. Three Clueless People. Bai Yu knew where Zenitsu Agatsuma was thinking, but Bai Yu did not think Zenitsu Agatsuma was a pervert. After all, Zenitsu Agatsuma was an adolescent, and naturally had curiosity and yearning for things between men and women. In fact, Bai Yu knew that Zenitsu Agatsuma was a good boy with simple ideas. Although he sometimes lacked brains, it was precisely because of this that Bai Yu was willing to make friends with Zenitsu Agatsuma. Okay. Since we met, let's act together. Let's go and ask the villagers here for news. Bai Yu brought the topic to the point at this time, and then proposed to ask the villagers about the situation. In order to prevent Zenitsu Agatsuma from harassing other people's virgin girls again, Bai Yu chose to act with 3 people. After asking, Bai Yu and others did not find out any useful information. The village here was peaceful, and no one was missing. Zenitsu Agatsuma, who was a little tired, suddenly leaned against a big tree outside the village to rest, and then complained to Bai Yu. Senior Bai Yu, I'm so hungry. Is there anything to eat? Bai Yu looked at Tanjiro and gave Tanjiro a look. Tanjiro immediately took out the dried fish from his arms and handed it to Agatsuma Zenitsu. "Thank you." Agatsuma Zenitsu thanked Tanjiro, took the dried fish from Tanjiro, and then ate it by himself. After eating a few pieces of dried fish, Agatsuma Zenitsu saw that Bai Yu and Tanjiro were not eating, so he asked, "Aren't you going to eat? The food is all in your hands, how can I eat it?" Tanjiro complained unhappily. Hearing this, Agatsuma Zenitsu gave half of the dried fish back to Tanjiro. Bai Yu took out his own portion from his arms. Bai Yu was not as hungry as Agatsuma Zenitsu, so he ate very slowly and not much. Because half of Tanjiro's dried fish was taken by Agatsuma Zenitsu, Tanjiro did not choose to eat it all, but ate a little to fill his hunger. Zenitsu Agatsuma didn't care about these things. He ate all the dried fish in his hand at once, then stretched his body with satisfaction, and finally leaned against the tree, and fell asleep in seconds. Tanjiro was speechless when he saw this situation. Tanjiro wanted to slap him twice to wake him up. Isn't it just like a pig to sleep after eating? However, Tanjiro was just thinking about it, and didn't really do it. Bai Yu didn't care about it at all. Anyway, it didn't affect him. However, when Zenitsu Agatsuma snored the next second, Bai Yu also had the urge to slap Zenitsu Agatsuma in the mouth. Because Bai Yu couldn't stand annoying noises. The last time, the water ghost clone who liked to grind his teeth was killed by Bai Yu with a knife because of the unpleasant grinding sound. Fortunately, Zenitsu Agatsuma is not a ghost, otherwise he would probably die under Bai Yu's knife. Bai Yu could only choose to endure the snoring of Agatsuma Zenitsu. Tanjiro's tolerance for noise was much stronger than Bai Yu's, so Tanjiro didn't care about Agatsuma Zenitsu snoring at all. Senior Bai Yu, should we search along the south-southeast area in the next step? Tanjiro asked Bai Yu at this time. He didn't get any useful information in the village, so the next step that Tanjiro could think of was a carpet search. Chapter 118 Plan Search. Hearing this, Bai Yu said, "We must search, but we don't have to search everywhere." Tanjiro, let me ask you, what are the characteristics of ghost? Faced with Bai Yu's sudden question, Tanjiro also thought about it, and then answered, the characteristics of ghost are that they are afraid of sunlight, and they are afraid of having their necks cut off by the sun blade. Wrong. What you said are the weaknesses of ghost, not characteristics. Bai Yu immediately denied Tanjiro's answer. Bai Yu knew that Tanjiro's thinking was wrong, and then he gave the wrong answer. Characteristics are special features. Do you know why ghost is called ghost? Bai Yu corrected Tanjiro's thinking. Hearing this, Tanjiro pondered for a long time, but still didn't understand. So, he could only shake his head at Bai Yu. Actually, is just a name for, and its fundamental purpose is to distinguish it from humans. The reason why is called is because it is not a human being. It is fundamentally different from humans, and this difference is the characteristic of. The biggest difference between humans and is whether they eat humans or not. So eating humans is the characteristic of. Bai Yu explained to Tanjiro. Hearing this, Tanjiro felt that Bai Yu's remarks were not rigorous, so he said, Senior Bai Yu, if eating humans is the characteristic of, some psychopaths will also eat humans, so are these people. Nezuko doesn't eat humans, so she is a human. Facing Tanjiro's stubbornness, Bai Yu also smiled bitterly. After a long sigh of relief, Bai Yu explained to Tanjiro. These are relatively special cases. Even if a person eats a lot of people, he is at most a pervert, and his human nature cannot be changed. And even if Nezuko has never eaten a single person, and has never been touched by a drop of blood, her nature as a ghost cannot be changed. Because the two are different species, normal people will definitely not all be perverted enough to eat humans. Conversely, it is impossible for all normal ghosts to be like Nezuko and not eat humans. Even Tameo and Yashiro, even under their own restraint, have to drink human blood to survive. Therefore, I was not wrong when I said that eating humans is a characteristic of ghosts, because most ghosts cannot survive without eating humans. Bai Yu explained to Tanjiro very patiently. Listening to Bai Yu's serious explanation, Tanjiro also understood what Bai Yu meant. The characteristics that Bai Yu mentioned are based on the premise that the other party is a human or a ghost. So, Tanjiro nodded and said, I understand, Senior Bai Yu. The topic has gone a bit off topic. As long as you know that eating people is the characteristic of ghosts, you will understand my next search arrangement. Bai Yu immediately brought the topic back and said. Hearing this, Tanjiro understood Bai Yu's plan. According to this characteristic, the place where ghosts may be active is definitely not in the deep mountains and old forests, where few people go, but in the mountains near the villages, where they can eat people. So although the area of south-southeast is very large, as long as we search around the mountains of the nearby villages, we can save a lot of useless work. Wake up Zenitsu. Today we will conduct the first survey of the area within a radius of 10 kilometers along this village. Bai Yu immediately stood up and explained today's task to Tanjiro. Chapter 119 I like women. Hearing this, Tanjiro came to Zenitsu Agatsuma who was already asleep, and then Tanjiro slapped Zenitsu Agatsuma on the face without hesitation. Pa. A crisp sound of pa rang out, and Zenitsu Agatsuma jumped up immediately, and then looked around in panic. Has a ghost appeared? Where is it? Who hit me just now? Zenitsu Agatsuma asked 3 questions in a row in extreme confusion. Bai Yu walked in front of Zenitsu Agatsuma, patted his shoulder, and said with a smile, Zenitsu, ghosts will not appear in broad daylight. You are a ghost hunter after all. Can you be more professional? Is that so? I was wondering why those ghosts usually come out at night. It turns out that they sleep during the day. Zenitsu Agatsuma showed an expression of sudden enlightenment. Hearing this, Tanjiro was speechless. This brain, I'm afraid it can't be cured. Bai Yu felt that what Zenitsu Agatsuma said made some sense, and it was not completely nonsense. After all, ghosts are afraid of sunlight, so ghosts should have nothing to do during the day except hiding and sleeping. Do you still expect ghosts to contribute to society? Come with us to search the mountain. Bai Yu said to my wife Zenitsu. Senior Bai Yu, why are you going to search the mountain for no reason? Isn't it good to sleep here leisurely? Don't you feel tired of being with ghosts every day? Although this is our job, there is no need to work so hard. Isn't it good to enjoy life more? After all, your fiancée, Senior Bai Yu, will have to wait at least 10 years before she can serve you. You should think about how to survive these 10 years of waiting time. My wife Zenitsu was a little confused about Bai Yu's serious work attitude. In his opinion, finding a beautiful girl he likes and living an ordinary life is what he pursues. Hearing this, Bai Yu was also a little surprised that my wife Zenitsu actually cared so much about his future marriage. I'm afraid that the only thing that my wife Zenitsu cares about is the matter between men and women. However, what Agatsuma Zenitsu said was indeed correct. Bai Yu really needed to wait for Kiko Yubuayashiki, the little loli who had secretly agreed to spend her life with him, for 10 years, before she could marry him legitimately. 10 years was indeed a long time. Bai Yu sighed a little in his heart, then he withdrew his thoughts on love, and said to Agatsuma Zenitsu, don't worry, I will definitely live longer than you. I will definitely have more wives than you. Agatsuma Zenitsu was immediately stimulated when he heard this. This was simply a provocation to him as a single dog. But Agatsuma Zenitsu knew that Bai Yu did have the ability to have 3 wives and 4 concubines. So Agatsuma Zenitsu could only sulk, and then he had no choice but to complain with envy and jealousy. It's too hurtful. Can you leave me some dignity as a man? Senior Bai Yu. Enough of the nonsense. Tanjiro pulls Zenitsu. Let's go. Bai Yu was too lazy to continue arguing with Agatsuma Zenitsu, so he ordered Tanjiro to tie up Agatsuma Zenitsu and go to search the mountain together. Tanjiro naturally didn't say much. Instead of letting Zenitsu Agatsuma harass other girls here, it would be better to let him follow him to find the trace of the ghost. So, Tanjiro grabbed Zenitsu Agatsuma's hand and controlled him tightly. Tanjiro, why are you holding my hand? Aren't you too close to me? I like women. Even if you are like this, I will not obey you. Hey Tanjiro, don't hold me. I can walk by myself. Amid Zenitsu Agatsuma's complaints, Bai Yu and others began to search the mountain along the village. Chapter 120 My wife Zenitsu's little thoughts. Bai Yu, Tanjiro and Agatsuma Zenitsu searched for traces of the ghost in the mountain under the afternoon sun. However, the key to the search still lies in Tanjiro, because Tanjiro's sensitive nose can detect smells that Bai Yu and Agatsuma Zenitsu cannot detect, so the person who can find clues is actually only Tanjiro. Bai Yu and Agatsuma Zenitsu are more of accompanying Tanjiro in the search. Senior Bai Yu, are you sure you can find the ghost like this? Agatsuma Zenitsu was completely unconcerned about finding the ghost and was just looking around. It is certain that we can find it, but it will take time. Bai Yu replied indifferently. I don't think we need to actively search the mountain at all. We can just stay in the village temporarily and wait until the night when the ghost comes to us by itself. How great. Agatsuma Zenitsu expressed his thoughts. Hearing this, Bai Yu didn't expect Agatsuma Zenitsu to actually know how to wait and see. When the time comes, you will kill them all, leaving no one alive. Then Agatsuma Zenitsu continued, and he danced like a hero. Bai Yu saw Agatsuma Zenitsu's actions and couldn't help but be amused by him, so he continued to speak along with his words. If the ghost doesn't show up, do we have to get married and have children in the village, and then continue to wait? Hearing this, Agatsuma Zenitsu nodded quickly, and then said, yes, yes, yes. After all, we have to protect the peace of the entire village, and we must not let the ghost harm the villagers in the village. Agatsuma Zenitsu thought that Bai Yu had the same idea as him, so he leaned close to Bai Yu's ear and then whispered to Bai Yu, when the time comes, don't snatch women from me, especially the one I proposed to today. Seeing that Agatsuma Zenitsu was still thinking about the girl before, Bai Yu immediately hit him with a fried chestnut and then poured a basin of cold water on him, saying, what are you thinking about? You are still thinking about other people's girls with your evil heart. Agatsuma Zenitsu immediately hugged his head and shrank, and then kept a certain distance from Bai Yu. Zenitsu, sooner or later you will die under a woman's crotch. Bai Yu said to Agatsuma Zenitsu out of the blue again. As a result, Agatsuma Zenitsu did not understand Bai Yu's meaning, but retorted, that is much happier than dying at the hands of a ghost. Hearing this, Bai Yu was completely speechless, and then ignored Agatsuma Zenitsu. In fact, Bai Yu knew that Agatsuma Zenitsu was using the excuse of waiting for success, and wanted to stay in the village temporarily, so that he would have a chance to find true love. So Bai Yu stopped paying attention to Agatsuma Zenitsu, and let him temporarily immerse himself in beautiful fantasies. After that, Bai Yu turned his attention to Tanjiro, who had a serious expression, and did not care about the mutual banter between Bai Yu and Agatsuma Zenitsu. Agatsuma Zenitsu saw that Bai Yu no longer paid attention to him, so he took the initiative to persuade Bai Yu. Senior Bai Yu, why don't you consider my suggestion? After all, passing on the family line is our fundamental mission as men. Bai Yu ignored him and asked Tanjiro, Tanjiro, have you found anything? Hearing this, Tanjiro shook his head and said, no breath of ghost has been found for the time being. Seeing that there was no breath to track, Bai Yu said again, then let's go to the stream to rest for a while, and then change direction to continue searching. Chapter 121, even drinking water can meet Yaojin. Tanjiro nodded and agreed to Bai Yu's arrangement to take a break. After that, Bai Yu, Tanjiro and Agatsuma Zenitsu returned to the stream they had passed before to rest. The afternoon sun was the most intense, so after searching for 2 hours, the three of them had lost some of their physical strength. As masters of breathing techniques, the three of them naturally did not search the mountain slowly like touring the mountains and playing in the water, but shuttled through the mountains and forests at a very fast speed. The mutual banter between Bai Yu and Agatsuma Zenitsu before happened after the three of them temporarily slowed down their speed. As soon as Agatsuma Zenitsu came to the stream, he lay down and drank wildly, without any concern for his image. Bai Yu and Tanjiro took out their water bottles, squatted by the stream, and filled the water bottles with water, and then drank the water from the water bottles. Compared with Agatsuma Zenitsu who directly put his mouth into the water, Bai Yu and Tanjiro were much more elegant. The water in the mountains is crystal clear, naturally green and pollution free, and has a hint of sweetness that can be felt by the taste buds, so Bai Yu didn't worry about the water quality. Just when Agatsuma Zenitsu was lying down to drink the water, Agatsuma Zenitsu suddenly screamed, and in an instant Agatsuma Zenitsu jumped up. It hurts. It hurts. Agatsuma Zenitsu jumped up in pain, and then ran to Bai Yu, with a miserable look on his face, asking for help. Mouth, 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 mouth. Agatsuma Zenitsu took a lot of effort to say 2 words. Bai Yu and Tanjiro looked carefully, and saw that a crab had clamped on Agatsuma Zenitsu's lips with its claws. Ha 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 ha. Tanjiro immediately laughed with joy, and Bai Yu couldn't help but cover his face and laugh. Agatsuma Zenitsu is really a talent. He can be clamped in the mouth by a crab even when drinking water. Seeing that Bai Yu and Tanjiro were only busy laughing at him, Agatsuma Zenitsu wanted to cry, but had no tears. He could only urge anxiously, "Help me get rid of it quickly." As Agatsuma Zenitsu opened his mouth to speak, the crab that clamped on Agatsuma Zenitsu's lips also swayed, because of the up and down swinging of his lips. With this swing, the crab's other claws clamped on it again. This time, Agatsuma Zenitsu screamed and jumped again in pain. Agatsuma Zenitsu, who was anxious, immediately wanted to reach out and pull it hard, but he didn't expect that Agatsuma Zenitsu gave up this choice after a little effort, because Agatsuma Zenitsu found that this was a stupid way to hurt himself and the enemy. So Agatsuma Zenitsu had to ask Bai Yu and Tanjiro for help again. "You think of a way." Bai Yu stopped laughing first, and then said to Agatsuma Zenitsu, "Stand still, if you don't want your mouth to fall off." Hearing this, Agatsuma Zenitsu suddenly became nervous, and then retreated a few steps in fear. "Senior Bai Yu, please don't mess around." As Agatsuma Zenitsu spoke, the crab clamped on his mouth swung up and down, which looked extremely funny. Tanjiro had caught crabs before, and knew that the fastest way to get caught by a crab was to break the crab's claws, otherwise he could only wait for the crab to loosen itself. However, waiting for the crab to loosen itself depends on the crab's mood. If it is in a good mood, it will probably loosen itself after a while, and if it is in a bad mood, it may not loosen itself for a long time. So are you going to get rid of it or not? If not, forget it. Seeing that Agatsuma Zenitsu shrank back again, Bai Yu didn't plan to help him get the crab off. Chapter 122, Unlucky Agatsuma Zenitsu. Get it done. Seeing that Bai Yu was unwilling to help, Zenitsu Agatsuma could only grit his teeth and choose to trust Bai Yu. Tanjiro watched Bai Yu quietly from the side and prepared some way to help Zenitsu Agatsuma get rid of the crab. After that, Zenitsu Agatsuma stood in front of Bai Yu with some trembling and looked at Bai Yu with some fear. Seeing that Zenitsu Agatsuma was so nervous, Bai Yu said to Zenitsu Agatsuma, "You are so nervous that you are shaking, so you should close your eyes. You won't tremble if you close your eyes." Because Bai Yu was really afraid that Zenitsu Agatsuma would be scared away when he saw him drawing his sword, Bai Yu could only ask Zenitsu Agatsuma to close his eyes temporarily, which would also relieve his nervousness. Zenitsu Agatsuma also closed his eyes with trust in Bai Yu. Seeing that Zenitsu Agatsuma closed his eyes, Bai Yu stood to the side of Zenitsu Agatsuma so that Zenitsu Agatsuma could face him sideways. Then, Bai Yu immediately made a move and pulled out the 2-color sun wheel sword from his waist. The next moment, the sharp blade of the sun wheel sword fell towards the crab on Zenitsu Agatsuma's mouth. The blade reflected the sunlight and shone through Zenitsu Agatsuma's eyelids and hit his eyes. Bai Yu's sun wheel sword fell on the crab, but did not cut the crab. As if sensing the murderous intent of Bai Yu's sun wheel sword, the crab suddenly loosened its claws, fell to the ground, and finally crawled back into the stream in a panic. Zenitsu Agatsuma, who felt something was wrong at the same time, also opened his eyes. After opening his eyes, he was frightened by the scene in front of him, and sat down on the ground. There happened to be a protruding stone on the ground. When he sat there, Zenitsu Agatsuma was hit by the stone, and remembered the ultimate secret, the 1,000 years of killing. Zenitsu Agatsuma jumped up again with a pain in his anus. At the moment of jumping up, Zenitsu Agatsuma's nose just brushed against Bai Yu's Nichirin sword. Zenitsu Agatsuma could feel the hair on his nose being rubbed off by the sharp blade. Zenitsu Agatsuma's whole body tensed up, and then instantly stiffened like a sculpture. He endured the pain in his anus, stared with his eyes wide open, and dared not move. Zenitsu Agatsuma's expression gradually twisted, as if he was extremely uncomfortable. Bai Yu immediately put the knife back. The moment Bai Yu put the knife back, Zenitsu Agatsuma screamed. "Wow, it hurts so much. Senior Bai Yu, do you want to kill me?" Bai Yu said to Zenitsu Agatsuma suddenly. "Okay. Stop screaming. Don't you trust my swordsmanship? Then you have to tell me." Zenitsu Agatsuma complained with jealousy and dissatisfaction. "With your courage, I'm afraid you will run away if you tell me." Bai Yu also mocked unhappily. Now, Agatsuma Zenitsu had no way to refute, and could only look at Bai Yu angrily. "Hurry up and fill your kettle with water. Let's continue searching in other directions." Bai Yu didn't want to argue with Agatsuma Zenitsu, so he ordered him. Hearing this, Agatsuma Zenitsu finally reacted, and then he touched his mouth, and found that the crab was gone. Agatsuma Zenitsu's mood improved. Because he was scared just now, and because a stone poked the bullseye of his butt, Agatsuma Zenitsu was in so much pain that he didn't feel that the crab on his mouth had let go of his mouth and ran away. "Where's the crab?" Agatsuma Zenitsu asked. "It's gone." Bai Yu asked lightly. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 123 Nightfall. Oh. Agatsuma Zenitsu was a little disappointed. He was still struggling with whether to steam or braise the crab after getting it off. Now it is obvious that there is no chance for revenge. Then Agatsuma Zenitsu covered his butt, then limped out his water bottle, squatted by the stream, and filled it with water. Tanjiro looked at Agatsuma Zenitsu who was walking so strangely, and couldn't help asking Bai Yu. "Bai Yu Senior, what's wrong with Zenitsu?" Hearing this, Bai Yu shook his head, and said that he didn't know. Seeing that Bai Yu didn't know, Tanjiro asked Agatsuma Zenitsu with concern. "Zenitsu, what's wrong with your butt?" Agatsuma Zenitsu forced a bitter smile, and then explained, "It's okay, I just fell down, because of Bai Yu Senior's fright." Immediately, Bai Yu looked at the place where Agatsuma Zenitsu sat down before, and saw a protruding and angular stone there. Now, Bai Yu understood what might have happened. I guess Zenitsu Agatsuma was hit by the protruding stone. Fortunately, he didn't hit his balls. Otherwise, Zenitsu Agatsuma would have to consider whether to be a eunuch or a woman in the future. However, if Zenitsu Agatsuma lost his ability to like women, he would probably go completely crazy. Now Zenitsu Agatsuma is very normal, which means that his balls were not injured, but his buttocks. After that, Bai Yu, Tanjiro and Zenitsu Agatsuma searched in another direction again. Considering that Zenitsu Agatsuma's buttocks were injured, Bai Yu and Tanjiro did not run too fast. Because of this, the efficiency of the search later was greatly reduced. Soon it was getting dark, and Zenitsu Agatsuma's timid character was revealed all of a sudden, and Bai Yu had to slow down his speed. Because at this time, Zenitsu Agatsuma was almost completely hugged by Bai Yu. If Bai Yu and Tanjiro really ran, Zenitsu Agatsuma would probably explode on the spot. "Senior Bai Yu, it's already night. Can we go down the mountain?" Agatsuma Zenitsu asked Bai Yu fearfully. "Zenitsu, night is the time when ghosts are most likely to come out and move around. If we go down the mountain now, we may miss the opportunity." Bai Yu had no intention of going down the mountain. Tanjiro didn't have any objections either, because he knew that the later it got, the more he couldn't slack off. "Then can we take a break for a while?" Agatsuma Zenitsu suggested again. Hearing this, Bai Yu thought about it, and finally agreed to this request. Even if Bai Yu didn't need to rest much, he still had to take care of the feelings of Tanjiro and Agatsuma Zenitsu. Bai Yu's condition was better than Tanjiro and Agatsuma Zenitsu, and it all came down to the breathing of the wood. After nearly half a month of exploration of the breathing of the wood, Bai Yu also figured out some of the characteristics of the breathing of the wood. According to the information Bai Yu learned, Bai Yu felt that the breathing of the wood should be a kind of auxiliary breathing. That is, this breathing method, which does not have the characteristics of attack and cannot strengthen the attributes of the body. Its only characteristic is that it can accelerate the recovery of body cells. That is to say, Bai Yu's recovery ability can be stronger than others with the help of wood breathing. This is also the reason why Bai Yu basically does not get tired, because Bai Yu's body damage can be quickly recovered through wood breathing. Chapter 124 I spent my money on girls. The limit of the recovery of the breathing of wood is still to be tested by Bai Yu. After all, Bai Yu has not been injured, so there is no chance to test it. Bai Yu will naturally not be stupid enough to deliberately hurt himself to test it. Later, Bai Yu found a relatively flat and open flatland as a place to rest. Because of fear of the dark, Agatsuma Zenitsu got some branches nearby and built a small fire. Agatsuma Zenitsu sat down by the fire, and his stomach suddenly growled. Hearing this sound, Bai Yu knew that Agatsuma Zenitsu must be hungry, so Bai Yu and Tanjiro took out the dried fish for Agatsuma Zenitsu at the same time. Bai Yu looked at Tanjiro and said, "Tanjiro, let Zenitsu eat mine this time. I guess the rest of you is not enough for him." Hearing this, Tanjiro also took back his dried fish. At noon today, Tanjiro saw Agatsuma Zenitsu's appetite. Just at noon, Agatsuma Zenitsu ate Tanjiro's daily ration. Bai Yu has much more dried fish than Tanjiro, which is also because Bai Yu eats less. Bai Yu eats less, thanks to the breath of wood. In addition to accelerating the recovery of the body, the breath of wood can also keep the metabolism of all cells in the body at a very low level. To put it bluntly, it is equivalent to turning on the energy saving mode of mobile phone. In the energy saving mode, Bai Yu naturally does not need to maintain the activity of the body by eating a lot. However, this will also limit Bai Yu's strength, so Bai Yu does not use the breath of wood 24 hours a day. When necessary, Bai Yu still uses the breath of water. The reason why Tanjiro took back his dried fish is because Tanjiro knew that Bai Yu's food intake was less than his own, and he needed food more than Bai Yu. Therefore, Tanjiro would not show off in front of Bai Yu, and doing so would actually be a fool's behavior. Senior Bai Yu, you should eat some too. Agatsuma Zenitsu ate on his own this time, but motioned to Bai Yu not to be polite. Bai Yu would naturally not refuse. After all, this was still his own food. So Bai Yu took 2 pieces of dried fish and ate them. Zenitsu, you must learn to distribute food properly in the wilderness. Bai Yu taught Zenitsu Agatsuma while eating. Bai Yu Senior, I understand. I won't let you eat it all. Zenitsu Agatsuma also knew that he had a big appetite, so he answered Bai Yu with a smile. At this time, Tanjiro asked Zenitsu Agatsuma, "Zenitsu, your food, did you eat it all?" Hehe. Zenitsu Agatsuma scratched his head a little embarrassedly, and then answered, "Well, my allowance was spent on girls, so I didn't buy food." Spend it on girls? The simple Tanjiro didn't really understand what Zenitsu Agatsuma said. "I just went to visit brothels." Bai Yu explained for Tanjiro very directly. Tanjiro understood now, and then he was a little embarrassed and questioned Zenitsu Agatsuma in surprise. "Zenitsu, isn't that a place for adults? How could you go to such a place?" Zenitsu Agatsuma didn't expect Bai Yu to be so calm and expose him without changing his expression, so he became even more embarrassed and then explained, "I'm also a victim. Those girls forced me in. I had no choice. In the end, they searched all my allowances and kicked me out." Chapter 125, Breaking the Wall. "So, are you a virgin now?" Bai Yu asked again indifferently. Agatsuma Zenitsu was very embarrassed and shrugged, and then said embarrassedly, "Bai Yu Senior, your question is too embarrassing." Seeing Agatsuma Zenitsu's shy look, Bai Yu knew that Agatsuma Zenitsu was probably a virgin. However, Bai Yu did not feel disgusted with Agatsuma Zenitsu going to the brothel. After all, Agatsuma Zenitsu was an adolescent and was full of energy. Bai Yu could understand. Tanjiro also saw that Agatsuma Zenitsu was probably a virgin, but Tanjiro did not feel disgusted with Agatsuma Zenitsu because of this, because Tanjiro could feel that Agatsuma Zenitsu was a good person. Maybe this is what Agatsuma Zenitsu wanted to accomplish before he died. Otherwise, Agatsuma Zenitsu would not want to marry a girl he saw casually. You don't say it, I can already guess it. Bai Yu replied to Agatsuma Zenitsu out of the blue. Seeing that the matter had been exposed, Zenitsu Agatsuma did not say much, but just smiled awkwardly. In fact, it can be seen here that Zenitsu Agatsuma is a shy child. Well, what about you? Are you still virgins? Zenitsu Agatsuma looked at Bai Yu and Tanjiro curiously. Tanjiro nodded and did not say much. Tanjiro had no interest in this topic, because whether it is virgin or not is not important to Tanjiro. The most important thing for Tanjiro now is to turn Nezuko back into a human. Bai Yu did not hide anything, and said 2 words lightly. No. Zenitsu Agatsuma expected Tanjiro's indifference, because Zenitsu Agatsuma knew that Tanjiro was not interested in these things. And Bai Yu's answer did not surprise Zenitsu Agatsuma. He knew that Bai Yu always said what he meant. As long as it was not a secret that could not be told, Bai Yu would usually respond. If Bai Yu was a virgin, this would surprise Zenitsu Agatsuma. After all, a handsome guy like Bai Yu would probably be raped by a woman, even if he didn't want to. At this time, Agatsuma Zenitsu came to Bai Yu's side, and then gossiped with a sly smile. Senior Bai Yu, can you tell me when it happened? Who is the heroine? Is she pretty? Where is it? Bai Yu hit him with a fried chestnut, and then said suddenly, why are you asking so many questions? How can I tell you such a thing? I just asked casually. If you don't want to tell it, forget it. Agatsuma Zenitsu covered his head, and did not force Bai Yu to tell him the details. After all, this topic is indeed not suitable for detailed discussion. Bai Yu naturally wouldn't say it. As for when Bai Yu broke through the wall, it had to be traced back to when Bai Yu had not yet become a superdimensional traverser. However, that was all old history. At this time, the mist spruce wooden box that Tanjiro placed aside suddenly shook, as if something was about to come out of it. Seeing this, Tanjiro knew that Nezuko wanted to come out for some fresh air. Agatsuma Zenitsu was frightened by the noise, and immediately hugged Bai Yu, then said nervously, Tanjiro, what's in the box? It's not something that eats people, right? End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.